When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
This is The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. If you like to race a lot, there's probably going to be a time when you DNF, DNS, or maybe come in DFL. DNF means did not finish. DNS means did not start, and I'm not going to spell out what coming in DFL means on this show, but I bet you can fill in the blanks. All three of these situations are tough on your ego. When you've trained for months or even years for this one special day, it's tough to accept when everything goes wrong. Sometimes quitting in the middle of a race is undoubtedly the right thing to do. Other times quitting is just quitting, and you'll be full of regret when you do. But when you're in the middle of a stressful race, you're not going to be thinking as clearly as you are right now. So it's a whole lot better to start running through the scenarios ahead of time to ensure you make the right decision when you need to. Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and my mission is to help you improve your running, your mindset, and your life with science-backed training and plant-based nutrition. On today's show, I'm going to talk about the dreaded DNF. I speak on personal experience with this one because I have been there myself. I'll go over when it's a really good idea to stop a race, when you should probably push ahead and try to finish, and how to get over a DNF and get back to better racing in the future. Don't forget to stay tuned all the way to the end of the episode for another Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. When you line up at the starting line of your goal race, what emotions are you feeling? If you've had a good training cycle, you are probably feeling nervously excited, ready to finally do the thing you've been working so hard for. You're hoping for a certain goal or two, and perhaps you're thinking you are about to race faster than you ever have run before. If your training cycle wasn't so good, you might be nervous in a completely different way. Maybe you have a little injury that isn't 100% healed, or maybe you couldn't quite follow your training plan as closely as you would have liked. Maybe your paces on your speed days didn't really fit your fitness, and you jumped on the struggle bus week after week. Whatever you are feeling before the gun goes off, most runners are not thinking about the possibility of stopping before the finish line and quitting. Even if you are thinking that you might not make it to the end, the logistics of stopping mid-race might be enough to deter you. After all, your stuff, the race staff, the food, and your family is all the way at the finish line, eagerly waiting for you. And of course, you've told everyone in the world that you are running this race, and to have to say that you quit, well, that's just sad and humiliating. I know because I've done it. And as terrible as it felt at the time and in the weeks after, I know it was the right thing to do. I'll go over my experience in just a little bit, but first I'd like to go over some scenarios where stopping mid-race is absolutely the right thing to do. Number 1 is injury. If you trip and break your ankle on mile 2 of the marathon, no one in their right mind would tell you that continuing the race is a smart idea. This kind of dramatic injury is thankfully fairly rare in runners. But there are other injuries that are a little more subtle, yet no less impactful, and they're usually a really good reason to bail. Hamstrings, Achilles tendons, and knees are all common places of injury in runners and can go from bad to worse very quickly if you continue to run. Oftentimes a runner will have an area that was kind of hurt in training, but the race has become such an important deal that they will overlook the little aches and the niggles and just keep pushing. You're at the starting line without being 100%, and the intensity of the race suddenly becomes too much. Something will snap, crackle, or pop, and you'll be forced to stop. Maybe you try walking for a bit and the pain seems to get better. There is a chance that it was just a minor twinge that will work itself out, allowing you to continue. But if the pain increases as you run, becomes sharp, or is painful when walking or standing, running is simply not a good idea. Yes, there are plenty of stories of people who were so determined to finish no matter what that they dragged themselves across the line a broken mess. But what you don't hear about is how much time they will have to take off from running to heal, rehab, and start getting back into running shape again. You have to ask yourself, is finishing this race, no matter what, worth the weeks or months of not running at all? Are you willing to make a mild injury a potentially severe one that sets your fitness back significantly or even permanently? No one likes to be a quitter, but I'd rather be a healthy quitter who can run than a broken finisher any day. The next good reason to DNF is acute illness. Dehydration, heat exhaustion or heat stroke, overhydration or hyponatremia, and hypothermia can all become more severe during a long race. Typically, these are heavily impacted by the weather on race day, but not always. Inexperience and underplanning can all contribute to fueling and hydration mistakes that can cost you your race. But even with all the experience and preparation in the world, you can't control the weather. Be sure to have a plan if your race is going to be in extreme weather. And by extreme, it doesn't have to be below freezing or above 70 degrees to qualify. Complicating factors are wind, rain, and relentless sun. If the weather is really, really bad, most race directors will make the difficult decision to stop the race for you, but if not, you'll need to make that call on your own. A classic example of a race with terrible conditions was the Boston Marathon in 2018. 23 elite athletes dropped out of the cold, wet, and windy race, including former champions, and the race was above freezing. Now, I wouldn't say that bad weather all by itself is a good reason to DNF or DNS for that matter, but if the weather is causing you to get sick, that's a pretty strong case. Of course, there are plenty more non-weather related illnesses that can happen during a race that are severe enough to stop, particularly cardiac events and diabetes complications. No race is worth your health or your life, so get educated on the signs and symptoms of serious illnesses, especially if you're at risk. In my own DNF, you could say that I did suffer from an acute illness, and it was one that I accidentally caused myself. What happened? I'll tell you right after this. As runners, you know we need to hydrate, and that means we naturally drink a lot more water than pretty much everyone else. That also means if there's any kind of contaminants in your water, you're also drinking up a lot more of the bad stuff too. That's why you gotta check out AquaTrue. AquaTrue purifiers use a 4-stage reverse osmosis purification process, and their countertop purifiers work with no installation or plumbing. It removes 15 times more contaminants than ordinary pitcher filters. Just one set of filters from their classic purifier makes the equivalent of 4,500 bottles of water. That's less than 3 cents a bottle. What really convinced me is that I'm a bit of a coffee snob. Using AquaTrue makes my pre-run pour-over taste amazing. AquaTrue comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and even makes a great gift. Today, my listeners can receive 20% off any AquaTrue purifier. Just go to aquatrue.com. That's AQUATRU.com and enter the code PLANTEDRUNNER at checkout. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com and use promo code PLANTEDRUNNER. I don't know about you, but those heavy, ugly plastic jugs of laundry detergent make no sense to me. You're paying for mostly water, they take up a ton of room in your laundry room, and then you toss the huge plastic jug in the recycling. And did you know that 500 million of those bottles end up in landfills and oceans every single year? That's why I made the switch to Earth Breeze laundry sheets. They come in plastic-free packaging, take up almost no space, and you're not wasting your money paying for watery detergent. It's an easy way to get clean clothes without all that plastic waste. Get 40% off with your subscription at earthbreeze.com/plantedrunner. That's earthbreeze.com/plantedrunner. Welcome back to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. When you walk off the course of a race that you've been training for months, it can be absolutely heartbreaking. I know because that's what I did. Here's my DNF story. I had traveled to the marathon with my young family, not anticipating how much I would be distracted from my normal race day routine. Traffic and the stress of driving around an unfamiliar city caused me to forget to drink water or eat the pre-race banana and fig bar that I normally would have. I had read about marathoners taking caffeine pills to boost their energy levels and lower their perception of effort. And I had practiced taking a caffeine pill in training. Well, actually, only one time. But it went well. But along with my pre-race fuel, I had forgotten to take the caffeine until the last minute when I swallowed it down into my nearly empty stomach just before the gun went off. I started feeling sick at mile 4. It was as if my stomach had trapped a rabid animal desperately trying to claw its way out. The pain worsened with every step. My heart was racing and I was starting to get dizzy from the caffeine. No amount of positive thinking or deep breathing helped as I hung on, hoping it would just go away. It actually got worse. I was still miraculously on goal pace at the half, but soon my dream finish had slipped away. My pace per mile slowed by over a minute. I felt my heart palpitating and my vision felt blurry. Rather than continue to escalate the torture, I quit at mile 16. Was that the best idea? I know that it was, and I'll tell you why a bit later, but it didn't make the hurt any less painful. Illness and injury are very good and perhaps obvious reasons to quit a race. But there are a few less clear-cut reasons to stop that are just as valid. Let's say something happens to you, whether it's painful blisters, unrelenting calf cramps, or it becomes clear that you are completely in over your head mentally or physically. Your only option is to quit or drag yourself limping to the end. Is finishing just to finish going to make you a better runner or person because you stubbornly refuse to stop? I'm not always so sure. There's no shame in calling it a day and saving your legs for next time. In fact, saving your legs is an excellent choice, and that's often why elites will drop out. If you know the results you want are not happening, killing your legs trying will take you out of contention for redemption. When I dropped out at mile 16, I was able to race a new marathon just 6 weeks later for a PR. And I skipped the caffeine that time. Now, I'm definitely not suggesting that you quit every time a race isn't going your way. That's a terrible reason to DNF because it's likely to repeat itself. Again, I'm not judging if this has happened to you, but more often than not, you'll have a bad patch in a race that you will get through. You're not always going to get the results that you want, but you can learn something from every race experience. One of the most important lessons is to not give up and keep pushing when you can. This is why it's essential to work on your mental game in training. Practice getting through tough runs where you'd rather quit. Practice your mental self-talk and get good at converting those negative words into a positive force. And finally, let's go over what happens next. Even if you've DNF'd for the most valid reasons in the world, there is no other way to say it. It sucks. When you've been planning, dreaming, hoping, bragging, anticipating, only to fail spectacularly, it stings like nothing else. You're a quitter. You tried and you failed. Ugh. The first step is to feel it. Feel the pain of failure. Go ahead and cry about it. Go all over the could'ves, would'ves, and should'ves. Take a good 24 hours hanging out at your pity party and feel as miserable as you can. You will soon realize this is a party you never want to be invited to again. So embracing how much it sucks will be a powerful motivator to never let it happen twice. Then it's time to take action. Go over all the things that went wrong and how you could change things if you got a do-over. In some cases, there will be nothing you could have done differently, but there's always a way to prepare just a little better in the future. Next, it's time to pick a new race. If you didn't get too far in the first race, you might be ready to race again in a few weeks. But if you were clearly outmatched by the distance, it might be a wiser choice to aim for a shorter race next to build your experience in a smarter way. You will still need time to recover physically and emotionally from what you've just gone through, but I promise you will get through this. Perhaps a better plan would be to aim for the same race next year with a full year of good training and a fire in your heart to slay the dragon that pushed you around. You could use your DNF as the fuel that inspires your racing to new levels. I hate failure just as much as anyone else. At mile 16, as I sat on the curb at the water station with the helpful volunteers cheering on the runners still running, I cursed under my breath and started to cry. My 2 little kids saw me fail. Later that week in kindergarten, my daughter drew a picture of mommy running a marathon, and my stick figure face was dripping with tears. But soon enough, their mommy was running again, training again. I was not going to be defeated by this one failure, and I was determined to show them and myself that I could reach my goals. One bad race didn't define me. In fact, it taught me more than most of the good ones. I learned to plan better and practice better in training, and I certainly never messed around with caffeine pills again, that's for sure. My heart and my ego were crushed that day. But I know I had to put them both on the line again. So while I wouldn't purposely choose to DNF, I know that it made me a better runner, a better coach, and a better mom. So if your true goal is to run for a lifetime, one awful race won't be the end of you. Just like a bad patch in the race itself, this too shall pass. And if you look for ways your DNF is actually a gift, you will find them. And now it's time for the Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today's topic is how to motivate yourself for cold weather running. If your mojo for running outside dips with the dark and cold, you're not alone. My first tip is don't rely on motivation. Get the right gear, lay it out the night before, and plan to go for your run at the same time every day, just like you would in summer. If you're struggling to make it a habit, finding a running buddy or a group that will join you is incredibly helpful. I promise you there are other runners in your town that feel the same way as you do. But if you just can't stand it, it's perfectly fine to stay warm and run on the treadmill. Treat yourself to some trashy TV and you might find that you actually like it. And finally, my last tip is it's okay to miss a few runs or swap them for cross-training during the off-season. Winter is a season for recharging, and you just might find that you come back better than ever. Thank you for listening to The Planted Runner, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Don't forget that you can win free access to one of my Sprint Session masterclasses just for writing an Apple Podcast review. So be sure to write yours right after your run today. Reviews are the #1 way to boost this show's reach, and it's a great way to tell me what you'd like to hear next because I read every single one. Have a great run today.
Sports stars. They're like superheroes.
But they're actually real.
Which is why we've made a podcast about them. You see,
They've all got a story.
but too many of these stories were cut short.
Kobe Bryant,
Payne Stewart,
Flojo,
Phil Hughes.
Justin Fashanu,
We're writing episodes about all of them.
and sadly many more.
Death of a Sports Star, a new series from Crowd Network.